Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Business First Creatives podcast. Now, if you have been living under a rock and you have not heard the 5 or 6 episodes for the Marketing with Intention series that have preceded this episode, please hit pause, please go back and start at the beginning because we have talked about all kinds of marketing in this series. And Emily Reagan is a unicorn, a magical unicorn, who is here to talk about hiring people to help us implement all of the kinds of marketing that we have been talking about. And so while I am absolutely positive that you are going to get a lot out of this conversation, I really do want you to have listened to all of the marketing conversations that I've had earlier, because guys, we have talked about some marketing that doesn't get discussed enough, like affiliate marketing. Hello. So I really want to make sure that everybody has listened to this before you hop into this episode. Emily, it is so great to meet you and welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
It is a miracle that you and I have not met / discussed because I am unicorn obsessed. And when I saw the name of your podcast, guys, it is Unicorns Unite, a podcast for unicorn digital marketers. I mean, can you guys imagine if I had named this podcast something with unicorns or rainbows? Like, I feel like we're kindred spirits. And
we are.
I'm happy to meet you.
I know. I want to steal some of your branding and your stickers and your rainbows. I'm like, this is my world. And it's so funny because people make fun of the unicorn thing, but it really is the essence of someone being magical, being rare, like owning her power, knowing her worth, combining her skill set in a very cool way that makes her booked out, no matter what the service.
So Emily, you're a little spicy. So I feel like we're going to start this conversation with like things that people probably shouldn't say out loud, or in our opinion, that they should say out loud most. I was recently on Instagram and my friends from Inkpot Creative decided to get spicy, and they post, your VAs should not be writing your blogs. And I felt like we should start this by saying your VAs should probably not be running your digital marketing. Like, okay?
Yes.
Because you have a special take on this. And listen, no shame to virtual assistants. I happen to love mine. She is a magical unicorn. She does everything and anything, but that is definitely not what you get when you hire most virtual assistants. So I want to talk to you specifically about this idea of a marketing assistant, because I don't think that anybody realizes that those are different. So Emily, tell me what a magical marketing assistant is and why every entrepreneur probably needs one in their back pocket.
This is like my biggest beef in this industry, because we say the term virtual assistant, which really is a very non-specific blanket umbrella job title. And for years, I was helping my clients grow their email list, make sales, nurture their audience, do their marketing. And they would call me a VA, and it was like giving me this tick and this twinge. And so finally I got smart. I'm like, I am not a virtual assistant, but what am I? And I kind of made the joke on my unicorn. And then I realized we really are in the marketing department assisting, whether you are at a specialist level, coordinator, or beyond to some kind of manager, like a podcast manager or affiliate manager. So it boils down to the fact that there are different departments in each business. And for some reason, everyone is trying to use this like term VA and make them in charge of their VA. Then they're upset that they don't know copywriting. They haven't mastered their brand voice when they're trying to make them work in operations, customer service, HR, accounting and finance, product development, and the marketing and sales department. I'm like, that's not what we're talking about here. So I am like hell bent on educating everyone out there that you can have a unicorn or a hybrid person who can work in different departments, but you really need to give someone a lane so you can get the outcomes you want, so you can hit those KPIs, so you can have someone grow up within your business and level up to that manager level. And so marketing and sales is one department of business. And so you cannot give a VA everything and then expect results.
Yes.
That's it.
And it's not even about a level of training. I feel like I have conversations about hiring, and yes, there are very important things to be discussed about. You can't just hire someone and expect them to take off running. Like, there has to be a training period. I had Selena Johnson on the podcast, what feels like ages ago, but it wasn't actually that long ago. But she was talking about, having a 90-day plan. to train somebody in your business. And I feel like no matter what you're hiring them for, that's a good idea. But no amount of training is going to get somebody to be able to write in your brand voice if copywriting is not a skill that they themselves already come with. And I feel like marketing is its own skill set that not
Yes.
everyone is born with. I mean, I don't know. I loved marketing in college. I never wanted to own my own business. The fact that I own my own business is very strange. When I tell people from grad school that I was a photographer, they were like, "What?" And then I was like, "Oh, but I also mentor and teach a photography class." They were like, "That sounds way more like you." I'm like, "Yes, but I also do photography and I'm damn good at it." But like now that I do like these systems things, I still feel like it's the same thing. Like I own a business and this was never what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to get a tenured position, be a professor for like life. I never imagined that I would be doing this, but I definitely have skill sets and the
Yes.
skill sets that I don't have, I need help with. And while I love the idea of marketing, I am learning the longer that I am in my business, I really do need more help with marketing than I need with almost anything else. Like, and I think that some of us just have to realize it's okay. It's okay to bring someone specialized into your business. And I heard you on a couple podcasts. Actually, I mean, Emily, I think I heard you like 3 times in one week. I
Oh,
think I heard
shush.
you on Jordan's podcast, Systems Saved Me. I heard you on, I mean, gosh, now I can't remember who the other two were. I apologize. It was like three a week.
Ellen came
It
out
was
around the
Ellen
same time.
Yentz. Yes,
Yeah.
it was Cubicle, the CEO. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Emily needs to come on my podcast and talk about this.
I love how you did the DM pitch, or like the quick pitch, like, will you be on my show? I was like, yes, this is my favorite type of pitch, by the way.
Well, the funny thing is, I know that you're supposed to write an email and you're supposed to say how you've heard of. No, I mean, if the DM didn't get you, I would have just gone to Jordan or Ellen and been like, "Hey, I really want Emily on my podcast. Can you write her a DM for me?" I mean, I had backup plans because you were going
Yeah.
to come on my podcast regardless, just so that you know that. But when it comes to marketing, I feel like a lot of people start with a VA because it's an easy hire. But so realistically, Emily, how do you see people deciding if they need a more generalized virtual assistant to get them going, or if they need to start with somebody that's more specialized, say in the specific marketing and sales department of your business?
This is such a loaded question,
It
and
is.
I want to backtrack for a second, and I want to poke apart what your friend said. No beef there, but when you hire a contractor, they need to show up in your business
Yes.
with skills. So, although you said training, I would turn that into touring. Like, you're
Yes.
touring my business, you're learning my business, you're learning how I do things in my business, but you still bring the skills and the how to. I am not going to have an SOP on how to send out an email and active campaign. You should already know how to do that.
Yes.
What do you need to know? How do I tag people? How do I report and track?
Yes.
Where does this email go? Like, how does it work within Asana? How do we pass the baton? It's that. And so, yes, you do need that tour time and that onboarding time.
That's good, Emily. I'm going to stop saying training. I do get you because that is what I meant. Like,
yeah,
this is
I know
how
you
my
did.
business works. This is what you need to do.
But most people don't get that. They don't get that. And then the problem is they're hiring VAs who don't actually have the skills, which is coming back to your question, and expecting them and being frustrated when they can't actually do things, or things are taking longer and costing them more. The other thing about marketing is it is a very broad term for a lot of things, and there is not one person who can do it all perfectly. And I mean, I'm pretty damn good. Like, I'm very creative, I'm very analytical, I can write, I can design, but at some point you will need a specialist to code something, or to edit that video, that sizzle reel. Like, that's just beyond my capability. But there is a sweet spot where you can get someone well-rounded enough, know your business enough, know your goals enough to help you kind of prioritize, like, what are the top tasks and things we need to be accomplishing. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see is people like wanting like the whole buffet like served
in one person.
Yeah. And so that business owner has to choose, like, what is the priority? Because marketing could be inbound, it can be outbound marketing. You could tuck in an ads manager in there. You could tuck in a PR specialist under marketing. Like, what is it that you're actually trying to do and focus on, and narrow that scope for your hire? So your bigger question about who do you hire first is really, where are you at? What's sucking up the most time and what are your goals? And for a lot of us, that is an admin assistant. It was for me. Marketing is actually not the first thing I outsourced. What about you? What did you outsource first?
So I actually hired two people at the exact same time. Well, okay,
Ooh.
not bookkeeping. Let's keep bookkeeping to the side because that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
But let's see. I mean, I think it was almost 2 years now. I hired my podcast manager and my virtual assistant at the exact same time. And the funny
Ooh.
thing is, I interviewed the virtual assistant first. And by the way, I got her from like recommendation of another photographer friend. So I was like, oh yeah, what is she doing for you? And I was like, okay, no, none of that is what I need. But if you're impressed by her, let me have a conversation and tell her what I need in my business to see if those are skill sets that she possesses. And so when I interviewed her, I said, listen, because she's very knowledgeable about Dubsado. And that was the biggest part of my business at the time when I hired her. And I'm like, oh, you can help me with builds. That is administrative work, but
Yeah.
it's revenue generating work, which was even more important. But I was like, okay, here's the thing. I was originally going to have you do some things for my podcast, but I'm actually interviewing a podcast manager later this week. If I hire her, you will not be doing any of that. We will be focusing on Dubsado setup builds. And then I was like, there's a second portion that I don't think the podcast manager is going to do, which is the scheduling of the social media content and those kind of things. So I was like, let me have a conversation with her. Like, you're hired, by the way, but let me have a conversation with her and figure out if I'm going to hire her and exactly what I'm hiring her for. And then you and I will have a second conversation to kind of solidify how I think I'm going to use my hours every month. And so I ended up hiring both of them in the same week. And it was great because I could describe how my podcast worked for both of them at the same time in terms of like the management and using my Airtable in order to like move people through and what I expected from them in terms of like passing the baton, if you will. Like, that was great. I did that all in one fell swoop, and then they just went running because, of course, both of them brought the skill set that I needed to kind of hammer your point home. So those were my first two hires. Yes.
Well, you were really smart too to be specific with that specialist. Like, you had a goal, you went for that. I mean, a lot of people hire an ads manager or book or sign whatever we want to say, an ads manager too soon, and they're not really ready. Like, the funnels aren't ready, things like that. So you were smart. Like, this is my goal, get the podcast going and alleviate time, right? Because it really comes down to that Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. And you need to be working on the business that makes you the most money. And you need to be delegating and outsourcing the 80%. So with a podcast, that's showing up with me, right? Doing the conversation, putting your face out there, and then anything you can pass off to your podcast manager. And you don't have to touch buttons. You don't have to edit. You might just have to drag something to the right folder and follow the SOP. That's going to free up time for you to do more generating things. So, and you were smart with your VA that a lot of people don't do, is you were thinking that scope. Because I think a lot of people hire and they're like, I just don't really know what you're going to help with. And so one of the things that I recommend, and this is like very cliche business advice, that you track and see what you're doing. What are you spending time on? Do your time audit. And for me, a lot of it is the drudgery zone. What do I wait till Friday to work on? What just isn't getting done that is actually a priority? There's things that are tertiary that just don't matter. My YouTube channel. That's one of them. It's like, would be nice, someday, but it is not the priority right now. Somehow, by a miracle of God, it grows. I don't know how. So with your VA, you were really smart with that and thinking in terms of how can she plug into what you already have. And she is, you're not just blanket, giving her no direction, right? Yes. So okay. So your question is really when are you ready to hire? And it really comes back to your goals and what are you trying to achieve, and concentrating on the big focus. So you're a great example. Yours was podcast. I'm trying to think, besides bookkeeping, that was one of the first things I got help with because it was sucking up an entire day to invoice my clients. I would be up till 2 a.m. and I love getting money. I love numbers, but it wasn't billable hours. And so getting help there was important for me. I also hired email tech was a big one. Just queuing up emails and formatting blogs and emails. Mm-hmm. It's just a time suck and there's no way to really do it any faster. And it's a distraction for me. I love ActiveCampaign. I still will build the automations, but I don't need to be doing the weekly email anymore. And that saves me 2 hours a week. Also, community management was one that I needed help because I needed a little bit of a buffer between me and my students because I am a people pleaser and I don't always have like the best boundaries, and I want to be so available. And so having that community manager to help with my student group and my free group really helped me kind of pull away and do the big projects and the big work that were really going to move my business forward.
Yeah. And I mean, since I've had those hires, now as a photographer, I will say the first thing that people outsource is editing. Like that's a big one. And since, I mean, you don't really have photographers, that wasn't
Yeah.
even worth covering. And I've talked about that a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like low hanging fruit for photographers is definitely outsourcing your editing. But
Yeah.
since then, I've also hired a blog writer and a designer so that I don't have to be in there trying to design the things to go on the Instagram to, revamp the podcast graphics and all of those kinds of things. But what I've noticed about myself is that I tend to figure out, like you said, I'm very focused. Like I figure out this one thing that I want somebody to do and I go find somebody to do that. Now,
Yes.
I will say my blog writer is also a Pinterest marketing expert. Like she usually does both for people. So when I am ready to branch out into Pinterest marketing, she is just going to be there to just add it on to my invoice. So I mean, that was also like a very detailed hire for me. Like I hired her with the intention of eventually doing both. I don't hire somebody to do my email marketing. Like I feel like in the future, that's probably where I'm going to go. But one of the things that excites me most about like marketing assistants is, like you said, you're not going to find someone who does all of the things, but finding one person that maybe does more than one that can help you with your content, moving it from one platform to another. We've already talked in this series about repurposing your content.
Good.
And so you can hire an expert for that. But I have the feeling that like if you've got a marketing assistant that is knowledgeable about, let's say, your ConvertKit email marketing and your Instagram and your podcast. I mean, those are three very big things. I'm sorry. But they can really help you make sure that you are using like the one piece of content effectively in all three places. So
here's kind of the problem. People are like, oh, I need a social media manager. Oh, I need a specialist. And
that's what people hire first, a social media manager.
Yeah, and they're not actually ready for that. And so the beauty of a marketing assistant or someone who's savvy enough with messaging, knows the different platforms or your top platforms, or could easily add another one if they don't already know it, they can really be deep into your content as almost like a content marketer, which is where we're struggling. So somebody knows your content so well, you could go to the beach next week and they could go repurpose your top email and you probably wouldn't need to approve anything. They could repurpose your post without you. They could take your email and dissect it and make it great. Are they going to be as good as, I don't know, who's a like 7-figure business owner's social media manager? Maybe not. And I feel like this is a little bit of letdown because I see so many business owners who are such perfectionists. Like she didn't get my voice or like wasn't written perfectly. But I'm like, if it's like an A-, like that's pretty good. And until you're ready for that social media strategist who's really going to help you have like massive growth, like this is great. This marketing assistant can help you with your blog, can help you with your email, your social, your website updates, to create a landing page for you. And here's the thing, we got to think about our businesses. Like what happens when we're at capacity, right? When we can no longer do all the little piddly things that just like add up and weigh us down on our to-do list. What are we going to outsource? So how can we get somebody kind of in our system, like learning our ways so they can pick up whatever's like falling off?
Yes.
But also so we can have a vacation.
Yes.
But what if like something goes sideways? Right? I don't know. COVID wrecked a lot of people, or like, sickness, health, illness, divorces, like all of that can kind of give us a jolt. And when we're self-employed business owners, when we're entrepreneurs, I think the hardest thing, I talk to all my friends about this, is like keep going when you're secretly falling apart behind the scenes. And so I think that marketing assistant or having a savvy teammate who's learning your business even before you're feeling like you're there yet is really important for the longevity of your business. Does that make sense? I kind of went off a little bit there.
Oh, no, it makes total sense. And I think it's your break in case of emergency. So, I mean, I haven't really talked about all of the details, but this year in 2024, I was basically out of commission for almost the entire 4 months of the year, like quarter one and then another month. And some people knew, But I would say 95% of my audience had absolutely no idea why, because I had 22 podcast episodes in my queue. All I did, yeah, 22,
Shut
Emily.
up.
All I did, I used to be double. So I used to have 2 episodes a week.
Mm.
And when I realized that everything was falling apart, I basically told my podcast manager, okay, listen, I've gone in and I've changed everything to be 1 a week. That is going to last you until June. Just edit them. So she did that. And again, my system is she edits, she passes it off to Sarah. Sarah finishes the social media content. So I had stuff on Instagram every single week. Like some people noticed that I wasn't in my stories, but like the majority
Wow.
of people were like, had absolutely no idea that I was just laying in bed like for weeks on end. So, I mean, yes, I agree. And I actually had to learn this really early. Way back in 2016, when I was not doing systems, I was just a photographer. Well, I was a photographer and also an educator, but I went blind out of nowhere in less than 12 hours. I was seeing and things were a little fuzzy. And by that night at 9 p.m., I could not see. I mean, it got resolved. I was legally blind for about 2 weeks.
Oh
Then
my
most of
God.
my vision came back, and it took another month until I could like see the peripheral. But that really taught me. I mean, literally, you asked me about when I outsourced in my business. I was actually telling you about the systems. That is actually the first time that I hired someone and I hired editors because I literally could not see my computer screen to edit any photos. So that is when I actually outsourced my first thing. But that was as a photographer, not really as a like a systems person. But I agree that all of us need to be in a position where we have people that can pick up the ball when we have
Mm-hmm.
dropped it. And
Yeah.
you and I both feel very passionate about this. We all need to be charging prices where we are capable of doing that. Like
Yeah.
if we are incapable of being in our business and we need to have someone step in and do things, we have to make sure that our profit margins are there so that we have the cash flow to be able to do that. And that is why I know you are so passionate about pricing. I am so passionate about pricing.
Yeah, and that is a real thing. I talk to a lot of peers and business owners who they're like, yeah, I had this big launch, but do you know what the net was? It's not that impressive. And so you have to be aware of who you're bringing in and can you afford to operate on your old prices when you start to grow. And like that's probably something people aren't talking about is when you do start to hire, it's not so sexy. You're in that growth stage and you're trying to be more profitable, but you're also trying to unload the work. But it becomes profitable when you use that time and
To
you
do
watch Netflix.
revenue
No, I'm just
generating
kidding.
stuff. Hey, I like a Netflix binge. That and a martini, and I'm good.
I mean, sometimes we need to recoup. Okay, I couldn't help myself there. But, when we go out and do that next thing that is going to either bring us some more leads or, a different, offer, whatever that is, visibility. So.
And Emily, so I hadn't really thought about this, but I told you about when I hired people. So when I hired Haley, she was definitely, I mean, I don't want to say a loss leader because that sounds really bad. Sorry, Haley, I apologize. But I knew that when I started my podcast that it was not actually going to be revenue generating from the beginning. Like I knew that I was going to sink at least 5 figures into this podcast before I started getting sales off of the ads that I am doing for my own products and services inside of these episodes. Like I knew that that was going to take a while. But when I hired Sarah, and I was specifically going to have her help me with the Dubsado setups. Yeah, no, that was definitely like she was paying for herself multiple times over because she was literally helping me do the work that was directly related to my bottom line, directly related to revenue. And so I feel like with a marketing assistant, the ROI is not always as apparent. And that shouldn't stop us from hiring a marketing assistant. Believe me, that's not where I'm going with this. But I do think that people need to be convinced or that they need to have a plan in order to look at KPIs, in order to figure out if the marketing assistant is getting them a return on their investment. Because marketing itself, especially like if you're not doing a good job of tracking, oh, well, my marketing assistant wrote this blog. Do I know that I'm getting any traffic to this blog? Do I know if I've gotten any direct leads from this blog? Like that kind of thing. So is there any advice that you would give people besides just know that it is going to be a return on investment for them to hire a marketing assistant in this kind of conversation type?
So what you described was somebody who saved you time and somebody who made you money. And I think that's why
Yes.
a lot of people jump to the ads manager I was talking about. It seems like, oh, I'll immediately get an ROI, which actually is not even guaranteed. But I think the beautiful thing about a marketing assistant is it can be both. It can save you the time and it can generate the leads if you use them right. One of the first things I did when I stepped out behind client businesses and started being the face of my business, scary, I started a blog. That, and I knew that blog and how the SEO game works, like I knew it was going to be a slog, but I also knew what it would do for my business in the long term. So I blogged religiously. Some of them are embarrassing, so don't go back and look, but most of them are pretty good. But they're now ranking in Google. I am now getting thousands of hits per month of organic traffic. I use UTM links, and I know I am getting sales from Google. And so it's like knowing how long it will take and what that payback period is. But it also, I'm at this point now where I have hired somebody to help me with the blogs because it's really important. And it's been kind of a baby that got dropped because I didn't have the right person managing it, understanding the click throughs, understanding my content. And so I just use that as an example of your personal goals. Not everyone's playing a blogging game. Like you very clearly understood the podcasting game. I think a lot of business owners when they're hiring don't get that, or like maybe podcasters when they start, that it is a longer game. And
very long.
Oh
very long, guys.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why you need a marketing assistant who's trained, who knows UTM links, because I guarantee you that VA doesn't. Not to diss VAs. It's like kind of awkward, but I will argue too that there are VAs who are fully capable of blogging and know SEO, who are just calling themselves the wrong title.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to ask your teammate what they want to learn, where they want to grow, so you can nurture them, foster them. They can grow up within your business. I did that with my big 7-figure client. I started off with Pinterest, by the way, and like grew into so much more because I kept seeing patterns. I kept seeing opportunities. So don't let the VA title scare you either, because somebody could be like me with a journalism background who's very capable of writing your blog, so you can get that off your plate and move on.
So Emily, this is like, the elephant in the room, but what happens? What should you do if you've hired someone and they're either a wrong fit or your marketing strategy changes and they are no longer a good fit for where you are intending to put like all of your marketing time and effort?
Yeah, because we're not all Amy Porterfield. We don't have 15 different specialists and like a whole content department. We have to put on our big girl CEO pants and make those decisions. And it sucks. I like people. I've had to fire people. I've had to let people go because they were a wrong fit. I will tell you, on one of my big clients' teams, we hired a community manager. She was horrible. She made people cry. She was an Enneagram 8. No offense to anybody listening, but like it was the wrong fit. Captain Obvious moment. And so we had to change. But there's nothing wrong with leaning into their skills and finding a place for them. I think the reason I like marketing assistants is because you could give them a chunk of time and they could do it well instead of like 3 hours a week just doing this, right? You get someone a little bit deeper in your business, more dedicated, but it's absolutely possible to figure out the mix that you need. And it's on you to track your marketing and make sure it's working. I mean, let's the other elephant in the room, there's a lot of businesses struggling this year, last year with the economy, and people are being more choosy. They're getting leaner teams and they're being smarter about who they hire. And that's on us to do.
Yeah. I mean, just so that you know, I'm an Enneagram 8.
Oh my God, that is so like me to put my foot in my mouth, make fun of the bald guy while he's sitting next to me. Like I will do
hysterical. That. The funny thing is, my 8 and my 3 are just like, I think it's 1 or 2 points. And I thought it was weird that I was an 8, but like I'm an 8 as a CEO.
I was going to say, like,
in general, I'm a 3. And so I thought it was funny though. But what you said is like spot on, because with everything that was happening with my health this year, I actually told my husband, like, don't get it twisted. I am not going to burn my business to the ground. But I did think about it. I did like seriously consider putting the business on pause, finding an actual job. And when I told him, I'm like, I'm already over it, but this was my thought. And my husband was like, I love you. You should find a consulting job. And I kind of looked at him because he's not in business. He is a biochemist. He is a PhD scientist. Like he knows nothing of the business world, entrepreneurship, other than what he gets from me. So when he said a consultant, I was like, so where is he going with this? And I said, oh, you don't think I can work for anybody anymore? And he's like, you can't. And I was like, oh, that's my Enneagram 8 coming out. Okay, let's move on from this.
I know plenty of 8s who like have people skills and are very pleasant, but this lady just kept referring to it like that. But she literally made people cry and was like proud about it, and that's just not the right person.
No.
You need somebody who's a little bit more patient, and they found a really good spot for her. And
Good.
she flourished.
I was hoping that was where you were also going to go.
Yeah.
Is just because your marketing plan changes, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody on your team that was doing this other thing is like no longer needed, or that you actually have to go and rehire. You should, if you like your team, you should first see if they're capable of doing and going in the direction that you have now decided as a CEO that your business needs to go in. I mean, you might not know that they work for you as a contractor doing this one thing, but you might not know that they're working for another company doing this other thing, and that's where you're trying to go. And hey, you don't need to rehire. You just need to reorganize and give them a different set of responsibilities versus what you originally hired them for.
Yeah, I have a lady in my inbox who helps with customer service. And for me, the inbox is a funnel. Like I want someone like wicked smart in the inbox with good people skills, but understands my business. So the next thing I needed help was an affiliate manager. It's not like a huge job. I don't need the like 20,000 affiliate manager to come in, but she is able to do that. She's already knowing my people. Like, it made sense. And so she's learning a little bit on the fly, but she knows enough. So that's working out well. This is what I did for years as a client. You talked about how your blog person knows Pinterest. Well, like that's the next step. Mm-hmm. They go together. When people complain about their VAs and they're like, I don't know what they're working on, or I don't know what they can do, I'm like, just talk to them. And that sounds so basic, but like have a conversation, because you want somebody in your business in their zone of genius giving you their best. You don't want them in their judgery zone doing their worst. Nobody wants to be the 5 o'clock client.
And I know earlier in this conversation, you talked about training, and I meant to mention it then, and now we've kind of come back around it. So I just want to say it again. Like one of those things that I feel like people go wrong when they hire is that they expect somebody to do it right the first time. And yes, those people have skills, but also you have expectations. And if they are not meeting your expectations, I think a majority of the time it is that you are not communicating what your expectations are well enough. Now, if you communicate them well and they are still not making them, that is when you have that hard conversation. As you said, you put on your big girl panties and you have that CEO conversation. Yeah. But you can't just expect somebody to know what's in your head. None of us are mind readers. No. And so, training, I feel like, because it's much more palatable when I talk about photographers and hiring an editor, because people are amazed at how much back and forth I do every time I've gotten a new editor. I'm like, oh no, I had a company that I was using. I wasn't using an individual then. I was like, but every time they had a shift in personnel and they gave me a new editor, for the first 5 sessions that I sent them, they would send it to me. I would make little notes. I would show them how I would have done it, and I sent them back videos. And after that, after like 4 or 5 times, I didn't have to comment on anything. They sent it. It was exactly what I needed, or it only had 5 minutes of tweaks, and then I could deliver it to the client. And the same thing is true of everything else in your business. You can't expect them to get it perfect the first time, even if you've given them SOPs, even if you've explained it. You do have to highlight how they have not met your expectations and give them a chance to rectify it.
Yes, I have to piggyback off that. My new blog writer, I had to go through, like her blogs were great, but I could add in my style, or this is where I would seed in my credibility. This is where I would link to that. Like she couldn't know that, but we're pretty much at the point now where she can take a transcript or something else I've done and make it a blog, and I am totally the bottleneck, and she will just have to publish without me. But I got her there. There was some back and forth. There was a time investment. We did have her kickoff call. I did have to get her access. Like it's so annoying, right? You're like two-factor, authentication. Like, it's so annoying.
That's my worst nightmare. I mean, and it's funny because I did a hiring a team series. I think it was September of 2022. And one of the things that we talked about is right now, you might be a solopreneur, but these are the things that you should do to prepare for hiring a team in the future. And one of them was never use Google single sign on. Because you will forever be beholden to two-factor authentication, like for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm worried now next week when I go to the beach and Google kicks everyone out of the inbox. But I'm going to, not check my phone, I promise. Okay, I do want to add on to what you were saying with a lot of times it is the client, the business owner, like our fault, right? But we also have to think about 3 things. Have you read Clockwork, by the way? I feel like you're a Clockwork girl. No? Okay. You would love it. Get it. It's really good for people in this stage of business where we've started, we've kicked off, but we're not quite like huge and scaling. And there's 3 things we need to give: information, permission, and outcome. So somebody can be my goal is to be autonomous. Like when I'm a marketing assistant in someone's business, like I want you to leave me alone. I'm going to go do the work when I can. I'm going to bug you and ask you questions minimally. I'm going to get your feedback minimally, but you have to give me permission to do some things on my own. You have to give me all the information I need to make that decision. So I think my team gets a little bit annoyed with me because I'm always like big picture, bird's eye, explaining why we're doing things. But that's because I want them to think within their lane. And I want them to think beyond their little task. What's the next thing, or what am I not considering that maybe Emily didn't tell me? And so we can make sure that we have the outcome that we want. And the outcome would be, so for a marketing assistant, you do want maybe 2, 3, 4 blogs posted a week, but like really, what is your goal for traffic? What is your goal for Google page ranking? Like give them that incentive so that they can do what they need to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they can help you prioritize better. And they might say like, I know you wanted me, I don't know why I keep using blogs, but like, I know you wanted to write this blog that, you felt passionate about, but actually Uber Suggest is telling me this will do better. Let's do this. I think it's better aligned with your priorities and like the outcome you wanted.
I love people when they come with ideas.
I'm like, take it away.
I mean, hello. Yes, please. I mean, it was one of the things that I finally told my podcast manager was I'm tired of naming things. Like you are the one that is listening to the episodes now. Because originally, like when I invited someone on, I would kind of have a title in mind.
Yeah.
But then I was realizing it was kind of a bottleneck because if I didn't think of a title first, I would have to wait and then we would make the graphics or whatever. So I finally told my podcast manager, nope, you just name it whatever you see fit based on listening to it. And then you can make the graphics and stick them in the blog post and do all of that. And so that was one of those things where eventually I was just like, you know what? Haley does a really good job. And if 1 every 4 episodes or 1 every 10 episodes, I would name it something different, it would probably have to be like really strong evidence, like Uber Suggest, like you said, says if I name it this, it's going to be amazing. I mean, then I might go in and like change it after the fact. But other than that, I mean, you have my full permission. Hey, to use that word, you have my full permission to just name it and go with it.
Yeah. You know what I think one of the biggest hacks would be for anyone listening who maybe hasn't hired or they're thinking about hiring a marketing assistant, it would be to start your word bank. Start your word closet of words and things and how you say things and words you'd never say. So then a marketing assistant who doesn't know you that well could pop into your business, put a strategic adjective in the right place, and just start sounding like you. Like, yeah, we're not expecting them to be, a 6-figure copywriter there, but if they could just sound just enough like you, I think we'll all feel good. And that comes down to the titling, like paying attention to how you titled in the past, what do you tend to like? And then now Haley can just run with it. I love that.
I will say, I don't want to go down the AI rabbit hole because we don't have enough time for that. But one of the things that I was listening to recently that I thought was like, oh my God, why have I never done that? If you asked me to tell you how I talk and how I say things, I really don't know what I would tell you other than to tell you that I cuss a lot, which, Emily, we haven't really said many cuss words on this episode. No, I'm very surprised.
We've been good.
But like if someone asked me, how I write things, I would probably say, oh, I just cuss. Like that would be what I said. But someone it was a, I don't know, it was a tip. And I'm sorry for whoever's listening if it was you that said this on a podcast, but I feel like they said, take your last few podcast episodes or the last few emails or blogs that you've written, feed it into Chat GPT and just ask it, what words do I use a lot? And then they can give you an idea, because I don't know that I could just pick off the words. Because I mean, I like to write kind of, but I actually like to talk way more. So I'm constantly like on my phone dictating emails while I'm in the car. I bring that onto my computer and then I'm reformatting and then I'm rewriting, because I talk way better than I actually write. But if you asked me for that, I could tell you the words that I don't want to use. Like, I think I could name those off the top of my head. But the words that I actually use, I don't think I pay enough attention to the way that I write or even the way that I talk to be able to give that to someone. But if I wanted to start getting ready, feeding that into the AI, application of my choice in order to get started with that would probably help me start writing that a lot easier.
Yeah, I actually had written down a note for myself, and I'm going to tie this into two things, so bear with me. One, I think it's human nature. There's probably some law or principle that we don't know what we want until we see something we don't like in front of us. And so you're talking about those words. I've been like that too. I had a teammate who kept writing the word amazing for her adjective of choice. I know I do that sometimes, but I'm way like this point in my business, we don't say amazing ever, ever, ever. And I educated her several times, like, take that word out. Take that word out. And once I saw it, was like really triggering for me. And she didn't really learn that. And she's not on my team anymore. But I will say things like contractions. Like, you'll sound more like me if you use contractions, like just some copywriting basics there. So sometimes when you see things that aren't you, it just gives you ideas of, well, this is what I am about. And this is just like marketing lesson 101.
Yes.
I was in this social media kind of hot seat and I was the last to go because that's what I do. I wait to raise my hand. And then she got to me and she's like, oh, you're a military spouse. So we're going to use words like bombs away and deploy. And I was like, oh, fuck no.
Oh my
God. And I just kind of sat there and like took it. And then I was like, this is bullshit. And then afterward, I just scribbled down everything that I hated about that. And it gave me a direction of who I do want to speak to. Yes. Who do I want to speak to? The woman who doesn't wear her husband's rank, who wants to be independent, who doesn't give a shit about her husband's military career. Like, that's my person. Mm-hmm. I don't want the dependopotamus. That's what they call them. So it helps. You get clarity in those moments. And so pay attention. If something's like really annoying you, write it down. And then that will give your VA or your DMA a good starting point. Even if they're shooting out little emails in your inbox, replying to people, if they can just sound more on brand for you, there's more trust, right? And the other thing I was going to say, kind of tying back to our VA conversation, sometimes we hire the wrong person. It doesn't work out. We're getting better as leaders, as delegators. But sometimes that wrong person gives you clarity to actually what you do need.
Yes.
And I have to say, this probably happens more than anyone's ever talked about. We hire the generalist VA, we get going, we feel like a CEO, and then we're like, oh, wait a second, I actually need this. And that's okay to evolve that person, let that person go, or hire the person you actually do need that you got clarity on. Again, the wrong thing in front of you will tell you.
And I find it shocking that that person couldn't get the amazing, because like, I am no one's virtual assistant, but I guess if I was setting something up and they said, oh no, I never use that word, I think I would make a little note. And then every time I wrote something, I would just do, Command F and type amazing and see if I used it anywhere in the, I mean, to me, that's a really easy thing to fix. And I'm glad that you said that, because now I feel like I should make a list and be like, Kara, when you're done writing the blogs, can you please check to make sure that you have used none of these words? Like, that would be very appreciative. And coming on the, like, I wouldn't say that. My blog writer has only been with me for, I don't know, is it 4 months now? 4 months when we're recording this. But she gave me a blog recently and she used Swiss Army knife. And I read it and I was like, that is not what I would say. And maybe you were on my brain, Emily. I don't know. But I changed it to magical unicorn assistant. That was what what I replaced it with. And then it was funny because I had another conversation with her and I was like, oh, I could have used pixie dust. Like all of these things came to mind like after, but I was just like, okay, I made a few changes. Can you go look and make sure that I didn't mess anything up, that it still sounds great? I was like, but just so that you know, I would never, ever use Swiss Army knife. Like that's not a me thing. That is, no.
I have a teammate, and I'm sorry if she's listening, but she always uses this same analogy. And I'm like, I have never heard that before. I would never say that. And she always says stretch like a rubber band. And I'm like, that's just like not a visual. I mean, I've actually read it out in the wild, but like, this is not a visual. But does it really matter? No. Did it matter? Did I need to like die on a hill? Did I need like, no. If we start seeing it a second time, a third time, like I'll kill
like
it.
Over and over again. Yes.
Yeah. But at the time, like sometimes it just needs to be a B+ and you need to get it out. Right. So it's like making that call.
Well, also, I feel like all of us that are hiring people, we should be aware of what's permanent and what's not permanent. I feel like YouTube videos are permanent. Not in that you can hide them, delete them, repost them, but you actually can't swap a video for a video. Like they don't let you do that like you can on Vimeo, which is, I love Vimeo for that reason. You know, you can just swap it out. But like a blog post, if they write something that like bothers you a little bit and you just think about it and like a month later, you're like, yeah, I just really can't stand that. You can always go in and change that 1 or 2 sentences and republish. And if you really need to, add it in a console so that it, you know, it indexes it again. Like that is possible. So, you know, even a podcast episode, like if you change your mind about something in here and you're like, yeah, I 100% don't think that anymore. Like, can we take that part out? Or if you mentioned an offer that you no longer do. I mean, I've never done this. I've done it to my solos, not really for guest episodes. But if something changes, I can always re-record it and swap in that new recording and everything else stays the same. The link, the downloads, the description, like all of that will stay the same. And so I feel like some of us should give some grace between what's permanent and what's not permanent. And if it's not permanent, maybe you are quicker to give them permission to move on without you, because if it needs to be changed, that is always possible in the future versus something that's like, you know, once you've sent this in, it's published on like the New York Times in print and it can't be undone. Like, I mean, you should pay attention if you're going to be printed in the Times, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In the same breath, I had a client that I would like listen to all her Facebook lives, her podcast. I really was starting to learn her voice. I was not a copywriter, but I was doing a lot of writing for her. I probably should have called myself that, but I would have charged more too. The one time I said, oh, that's stinking cute. And she's like, I would never say that. And I'm like, correction, you say it all the fucking time. I did not say this. I never say that. I love this tangent we're going off on. I never say stinking cute. Like those are your words and I threw them back at you and you didn't like them. Like, okay, noted. I will not use that again. But I was
also,
like,
I'm listening to you say it over and over again while I'm listening to your Facebook lives. I mean, that's when you just gently send her a transcript. I don't know. See, I'm bad. I'm bad.
I know, me too. Well, I'm not. I'm not working with my retainer clients anymore. Like I've had to give a lot of them up. But I just remember that. I will never forget that story because sometimes I think this is it as a VA. Sometimes, like if we make a mistake, we want to defend ourselves, right? And explain why. But like in the end, you just need someone to correct it and move on and not give you all the excuses. And like, I have a hard time with that because I always want to explain like, well, why does it look like that? Or what happened? Or what was the thought process? But something like that, it was just like, all right, okay, let's move on. And the VAs that I see that aren't so successful are full of excuses.
So, and just can't correct and move on.
Yeah, which is hard too, because we were kind of joking about being unemployable, you know. sometimes, and this is a little spicy, sometimes the freelancer culture is not always the cream of the crop. Okay, there's a lot of people starting out as VAs who are getting lured by like the quick money, you know, even in the course creator business, like quick money, like the online business, but like there are always good people out there. You might have to work through some of them to find out like who really gets your business, who really cares, who's the true intrapreneur behind the scenes. And some people might not have the chops to do the work, and that's okay. And you have to recognize that as a CEO.
If you don't have a clear vision of like where your business is going, what the goals are, what the goals should be, if that's something that we should say. I mean, you might need to have a conversation before you get to the hiring phase so that you can figure that out. Like, what is it that you really do need in your business? And what is your top priority to get like now, ASAP, immediately?
Yeah. And you're talking about somebody who understands strategy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a blend of business coaching. And there are people like me who I did that with clients all the time, kind of as it happened. Should I have been charging for that? Yes. But I think
Yes.
this market is getting sophisticated. My unicorns know better. They're pulling out strategy sessions. Like, it's going to happen. And it's awesome because we're in so many businesses. We see what's working. Like, a lot of VAs, good marketing assistants grow up to be so much more than a VA or an assistant. So if you have somebody smart like that who's a brainiac, use them,
Mm-hmm.
pay them what they're worth, but don't expect strategy from somebody new. And then also this phenomenon of business coaches who, I don't know, maybe did it once for themselves, but don't actually know tech, don't actually know implementation. Maybe they hired it all out anyway. Like, I can name so many names. You might just like straight up like get the strategy from another source, and then you need the implementation. Like, that's the gap I saw. And in my Unicorn Digital Marketing Assistant School, my main goal is to get my marketing assistants to a place where they're confident in their thinking. Maybe their first couple clients, they're not leading marketing, but I see the trajectory of where it's going. And if I can get them to understand and think inside a client's business, okay, what's our goal of marketing? What are their priorities? How can I help? Then like developing that critical thinking, high order thinking is really like what we want in our business.
Absolutely. Emily, if people want, I've already said your podcast. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Unicorns Unite, guys. It's not that hard to remember. Go listen to her podcast. It is awesome. But if people want to find out more information about you, where else can they find you on the internet?
You know, I'm having the most fun on Instagram, so you can find me there at Emily Reagan PR. I also have a blog. You check it out. I talk about hiring, I talk about marketing services, and I nerd out on marketing strategies. And then also, if you want to work with one of my marketing assistants, go to hireaunicorn.com, and we do this super easy form where we just we do a quick intake form and we share it with my work group. So if you were to post a job like in a Facebook group with 40,000 VAs, you're going to hate your life. You're going to be inundated. Like, you're not going to be able to figure it out. And so what I have done is take that process, make it a little bit easier. And we'll have up to 10 unicorns reach out to you with different skill sets. They're all their own business owners. They all can meet with you on a discovery call and you can make that decision. I am not a matchmaking agency. I just love hooking my friends up with awesome clients and good jobs and helping them find paying work. So hireaunicorn.com will get you into my work group.
I am really mad that she got hireaunicorn.com before I could, guys. I mean, don't you think that that would be an awesome URL for me? Hireaunicorn.com to fix all of your systems needs. It's okay though. I like Emily, so I'm gonna let her keep that URL.
Yeah. Maybe there's like systemsunicorn.com.
I mean, don't tell everybody. I gotta go. Well, it's okay. This is not gonna go live for a while. I'm gonna go look for. I love buying URLs, Emily. You have no idea. I had so many for my photography business, and I haven't really done that for my systems business. So maybe it's time.
Yeah. I just bought one last week, becomeamarketingassistant.com.
That is a
Can you believe that was open?
Open. I mean, you just paid like regular like $8.99 for it?
It was like $40 for 4 years. It was like a cent a month or whatever and then they get you on all the little things you have to add on. But yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. I hope that you have found this episode insightful. There is just one more episode in the Marketing with Intention series, and you will have to tune in next week to see who it is. All right, that's it for this episode. See you next time.